So welcome everybody to Hub 350, to the RBCX financial quarters here in the heart of Canada's largest technology park. Mon nom est Guy Levesque, je suis vice-recteur associé à l'innovation, les partenariats et l'entrepreneuriat. I'm also a regular and frequent member visiting Canada North on a weekly basis, if not multiple weekly basis. We have a great office just across the hall. Bienvenue à Ottawa, Ottawa Innovates in the heart of, as I said, Canada's largest technology park. We're going to talk today about bridging the cybersecurity skills gap. Whether you're the University of Moncton, the Library of Calgary, a small regional hospital, or a large multinational company, cybersecurity incidents happen on a daily basis. There doesn't go a day where you don't read a headline in a newspaper or a magazine about the challenges of keeping up to the actors that are interested in creating chaos in our daily lives by manipulating data, networks, platforms to impact our daily lives as individuals, as societies, as democratic citizenries. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the current cybersecurity landscape. The Faculty of Engineering, U Ottawa Innovates has assembled a fantastic panel today who are going to probe deeply a few key questions around cybersecurity and the skills gap. Our moderator, Sylvain Huppé, will present them just in a few minutes. We're going to talk about the challenges. We're going to maybe try and define what the gap is, because the gap has multiple flavors and dimensions, both in the number of cybersecurity experts we want and need in the public and private sector, but also in the quality of the skills and the timeliness of the skills that our current cybersecurity workforce has. One of the reasons why the University of Ottawa went all in on cybersecurity and cyber safety about 5 years ago was because when we had conversations with our academic, government, and industry partners, number one, number two, and number three top of mind issues for our partners was cybersecurity and cyber literacy. And so we decided that this was a place where the university could have a tremendous impact and relevance for our partners. And so whether you're a solo entrepreneur or leading a multinational corporation or leading a democracy as a government in power, cybersecurity has to be top of mind. That's why on Tuesday, Minister Victor Fedeli, who's the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade for the province of Ontario, and I'm giving you a bit of a insight, or maybe teasing a little bit of a public announcement. The University of Ottawa and the U Ottawa IBM Cyber Range, which is the only one of its kind in North America, it has been declared or determined or deemed to be the first technology demonstration site for the province of Ontario for cybersecurity. And so that means that it's going to be a vector of training and professional development and research for cybersecurity happening in the province. You might know that the province has a number of these technology demonstration sites for vehicle innovation. There is now going to be some in cybersecurity. And that's part of the Critical Industrial Technologies Initiative that the Ontario Centre of Innovation has launched just last spring. And so Professor Jourdan might be able to give you a little bit more insight as to what this technology demonstration site means for the university, for the region, and for the province. Donc, sur ce point, je vous remercie d'être ici ce matin. I hope you'll learn a lot from the engaging conversation that will happen on this stage. And it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Sylvain Huppé from the University of Ottawa. Sylvain?
Merci, Guy. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming up. I think it's going to be a great session we're going to have today. I will do quick bios and intros for the panelists and myself, and then we're going to walk into a nice 45 minutes of discussion to Guy's point with nice intelligent questions and answers. And we will encourage you guys to ask questions at the end. So if you can start thinking about some questions for our panelists, we'll have 10 minutes at the end to go through those. So myself, Sylvain Huppé, Senior Manager of the IT Operations at the University of Ottawa. On the professional front, I've been in cyber for 19 years. Most of my career has been spent on the managed security provider side. Started with a few years at CGI, followed with 13 at TELUS, a little bit stint of 4 years at KPMG, and I recently joined the university in August as responsible for the cybersecurity operations. We're going to quickly turn your attention to our panelists, and we'll start with our fellow friend, Monsieur Professor Guy Vincent Jourdain, Director of Microprogram and Cybersecurity at Faculty of Engineering at the Ottawa U. Guy Vincent has joined the Faculty of Engineering as a professor in June 2004 after spending 7 years in the private sector. Guy spoke about it a little earlier, but his work at the University of Ottawa and in IBM Cyber Range, combined with his research, has helped tremendously the contribution within the region and the community. And it'll be interesting to get Guy Vincent's spin on the landscape and the future of cybersecurity. Next, we have Olubisi, excuse. She's the Director of Microprogram of Interdisciplinary, I promised myself I wouldn't stumble on that word, and I kind of did, but Interdisciplinary AI at the Faculty of Engineering at Ottawa U. She was awarded master's and doctorate degrees from the Faculty of Engineering in Digital Transformation and Innovation. She's also a professor at the university, so teaches classes around machine learning, data science, and data mining, just to name a few subjects. Her current research interest includes a lot of AI. Going through the list, it's very fascinating. We definitely have an AI expert with us today, which is interesting. So I'll just name a few of them, but explainable AI, low resource generative AI, AI model training, and AI platforms for education, which is very interesting and very tailored to the conversation we're going to have today. Welcome. Our next panelist, Wayne Corvo, Director of the Digital Impact Office for Cisco in Canada. Wayne also leads the Cisco Innovation Center in Toronto. With over 21 years at Cisco, Wayne is known for his work around the Internet of Everything solutions. Wayne is also very passionate about closing that digital skill gap in the industry. He actively contributes to the Cisco Networking Academy, which I'm sure from looking at the audience that most of us has spent and took courses on that from Cisco over the years. So thanks a lot, Wayne. And our last but not least, Mel Legama, the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Fortinet Training Institute. Mel is definitely passionate about driving growth and innovation in cybersecurity sector. She focuses a lot of her time developing strategic initiatives to reduce the cybersecurity skill gap in our workforce. Outside of her professional role, Mel spends a lot of time mentoring emerging talents in cybersecurity, which, as we all know, networking and being able to look up to leaders is very important. So thanks, Mel, for contributing to that. And she also advocates quite a bit for cybersecurity education across all ages group. I think in this day and age that you cannot start to be exposed and aware about cybersecurity too young. So thanks for advocating this. So that's it for the quick bios. We're going to run into our questions. I am more worried about making sure that everyone has time than going through all the questions. We do have quite a bit of material to cover, so this is going to be interesting. The first question will be directed to Wayne. Wayne, if you could take the mic, please. Yep. Wayne, from your perspective, from your perspective, Wayne, what is the cybersecurity landscape currently in Canada? And how do you think that organizations are prepared to face today's challenges of cybersecurity risks?
Thanks, Sylvain, and thanks for allowing me to be here. I'm really excited to be on this panel with such awesome folks. So let's say the landscape today, I think, goes without saying, it is the most complex that it has ever been. When we think about the billions of users that are connected and the billions of devices that they connect with, we can think about the pace of change being unprecedented and escalating at a breakneck pace. When we think about all those devices and users connecting across multiple locations in a given day, enterprises need to secure those connections through at-home offices, corporate offices. They need to enable those secure connections to private and public clouds. So there's a lot of complexity that any organization has to deal with. When we also think about the fact that each of those organizations, in every company, there's usually between 50 to 60 cybersecurity applications that need to be updated, managed, maintained. So we think about the folks that have to do that. There's a lot of complexity in the system. And when we also layer on top of the fact that there's a deficiency of resources in the industry to solve all those job requirements. In 2025, there'll be 250,000 cybersecurity jobs in Canada that will likely go unfilled. So there's a problem with the industry's ability to satisfy those requirements and the level of skills development. So there's a skills gap in the system. When we add on AI onto that, it even becomes more complex, because now we've got AI, while it is really beneficial to help upskill and up-level individuals that might enter the industry, and cybersecurity professionals will be assisted by AI. We've also got the ability for AI to be leveraged by bad actors. So they can leverage AI to help with their own attacks. So we've got a lot of complexity in the system, and it is unlike something we've ever seen. It's not all doom and gloom, because 96% of companies expect to increase their cybersecurity budgets in the next year. So that's optimistic. And then the final thing I'll say, which I think is super interesting, is our cybersecurity readiness index, which we launched this year, shows that only 1% of Canadian companies have a mature enough cybersecurity posture to thwart attacks. Yet 78% of Canadian companies are confident in their ability to thwart attacks. So I think that is a super interesting contradiction in actual readiness and perceived readiness on the parts of the companies. So let's just say that, like, there's a lot going on. This is a really complex time for the industry, and there's a lot of challenges, but a lot of optimism that we can see in this landscape.
Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Next question will be directed to Mel. Please pass the mic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mel, what specific cybersecurity skills are the most in demand right now, and why?
So I'm so glad we're talking about skills. Shelley and I, who's also from Fortinet, talk about this on a daily basis. We talk about it with our partners. We're in industry when we're talking about it. I sit on some panels with the World Economic Forum, and the skills gap and filling that skills gap is a huge part of the conversation. It's not just about, as you touched on, products that are defending our networks. It's the individuals who are using those products and architecting the networks that need to have the skills. So that's really important. Shelley and I also, I think we all have reports that we work on, have a cybersecurity global skills gap report that we put out. It's in its third year. And my memory isn't as good as yours, Wayne, so I have a little cheat sheet. But 58% of the organizations we polled on a global level said that the skills gap is the prime reason, or that the insufficient skills of their IT and security staff is the number one reason why they're having breaches in their organizations. And these breaches are going up year over year over year. When we asked them what the top 3 in-demand cybersecurity skills were, so great question, it had to do with cloud security, cybersecurity, threat intelligence, and malware analysis. So that's really where we're seeing those gaps. We also asked them where it was hardest to find people, so a slightly different question, and that was network engineering and cloud security. And this is really interesting too. You touched on AI. It's a game changer, obviously. We're afraid of it in a lot of different ways. Bad actors are using it, but it's also used in a lot of the solutions we have. But it's going to change the way we work. And if you liken it to, I heard it compared to when the calculator was introduced for math, or when the internet came on, or when we started using computers. It creates a lot of opportunity. We had talked about that before, but it also creates a different way of working for individuals. So losing jobs, some may disappear, others will be developed, but how we work, the skills with how we work will have to be a lot of critical thinking, being able to analyze the results that we're getting from AI and being able to think quickly at a higher level and deal with those mission critical questions that are coming up.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you. Wayne, you're going to be it again. Wayne, how do you think that cybersecurity skill requirements differs across various industries, education, financial services?
So, you know, across the board, like we said, you know, every industry is facing challenges with cybersecurity. When we look at the specific nuances across those industries, it is really going to be around the data that that industry has. When we think about things like financial services, healthcare, obviously there's a level of data that is particularly advantageous for bad actors to get access to. And the level of readiness in those organizations is also kind of in line with how much they have to lose by those cyber attacks and how much they have to gain by thwarting those attacks. Again, our cybersecurity readiness index did indicate that healthcare was actually the number one most targeted industry last year. And there's interesting reasons for that, but you know, some of the other things that we're seeing is around utilities and energy had doubled attacks between 2020 and 2022. And that's in correlation to a lot of the geopolitical tensions that we're seeing, and we can expect those to continue. So I think the conversation there is really around every industry is dealing with the challenges. Every industry has a requirement and a benefit to, you know, addressing the bad actors and the systems that they need to maintain. I think it's maybe I'll just finish my point that it is across the board a consistent problem. It is really just seen by the nuances of the kinds of data that are ripe in those industries.
Nice. Yeah, I know it is interesting. They all have their different perspective of what they're trying to save. Cool. Thank you. So next question will be for Olubisi. Olubisi, as I said, you are our AI expert. So we will have an AI question. No, we'd like to think, and like we spoke about AI and how it's changing our lives, and we made the comparison with calculators and computers when they came in. But from a cybersecurity perspective, how do you think AI applies to cyber? And how do you think that AI will impact the demand of cybersecurity skills?
Yeah, as we know, AI is actually transforming the cybersecurity space, and there's a lot of applications of AI to cybersecurity. We've seen it in cyber threat detection and prediction, where we're now using machine learning or deep learning algorithms to be able to analyze threat data. We've also seen it being used to for threat intelligence and prediction as well, where we're seeing natural language processing algorithms being applied to news, the dark web data, and so on, to be able to extract specific intelligence. So AI is actually, there are a lot of several applications or use cases or scenarios. We've even seen it in automation of tasks, where there wouldn't be any need for human analysts to actually analyze data. Organizations can do a lot of their tasks much more faster. And in terms of impact of AI on cybersecurity, it's actually changing the roles. There is now the need to be able to upskill, have understanding of the AI field itself, which is really vast. A lot of different techniques that can be applied. We have all kinds of different data that can be analyzed, from the network to the logs and so on, to be able to detect threats and be able to identify actors or bad actors we have in this cybersecurity space. And there is also the need to be able to understand how to use programming languages like scripting languages. It's changing the knowledge gap we have requirements to be able to analyze different kinds of data sets and so on. So we're seeing these changes, new roles now cropping up, threat analyst or AI threat analyst and so on, or incident response analyst and so on like that. So yeah, there's a lot of changes going on. It's really having a great impact. Cybersecurity.
Thank you. So you can pass the mic to Mel, actually. But you're right, and I feel like AI, I'll speak for myself. I remember the first conversation I had with an ex-colleague when they said, have you heard about ChatGPT? And my answer was no. And then they started talking about it. And then the first reaction was, we'll see. And then the second one was the fear of what is this? How is this going to work? And then we talk about privacy, and then we talk about, we all work, well, most of us or some of us work with client data, and then we don't want our client data to get on the AI front. So the question to Melvin and Wayne, I'll ask you your side of it after, but how can organization equip their team to tackle the challenge and seize the opportunity of combining both cyber and AI without the fear or doing it securely, I guess I must say?
So there's definitely fear. You can't get rid of the fear. Certainly if you're on a cyber team or IT team, you have to be aware of what's out there. Yeah. I think from the stats from our report, right now 62% of the organizations globally think that their employees are going to fall for more attacks because of AI. And I think that's a very accurate response to that. They're looking at three things. I touched on IT skills, cyber skills for their IT and security teams as the number one. Number two was making sure you have a cyber aware culture so that you're educating all your employees so that they're able to identify these attacks, even these deep fakes that are coming through, the ransomware, all of that, and know how to proceed with it. So that's really changing the culture within your organization. So making them all AI, not only cyber aware, but AI aware, like you're saying, we all need to be aware. We also saw that 95% are already using solutions that integrate AI. We've been, and I'm sure Cisco has too, been using it for many, many years in our solutions. You have to fight fire with fire when you're dealing with AI and the bad actors. So that's good. Where there's a gap, and it's funny you brought up ChatGPT, is around the applications that all employees are using, the AI applications. Only, I'm going to have to check here, 31% manage or monitor what their employees are doing when in response to AI applications, and that may be a dangerous gap for us. So we don't have the answer to what's happening, but if our 14,000 employees are all inputting information about Fortinet into ChatGPT, it's collecting that data intelligence on it, and anybody can query on it. So that's a problem.
Yeah, no, interesting. Wayne, how about you on the Cisco front?
Sure. I think I like to think of this in three ways. Obviously, training and education is a critical and important part of that that conversation. We have to make sure that everyone is aware of the tools and the capabilities, and incorporating how AI is changing the conversation from an education standpoint. The second one I think is interesting is around collaboration, and that's internally and externally. So think about in an organization, you may have teams that are focused on AI, and you may have teams that are focused on cyber. Making sure that they are communicating and collaborating will be important. Specifically to Mel's point, if there are policies that are being driven that are guided and required by cyber, how is that being deployed with AI tools, specifically uploading, personal information or company information into AI tools? From a cybersecurity perspective, that's a big problem. Making sure that those policies are being adhered to from an AI lens, and thinking about what the benefit of those two organizations or those two groups or departments in a company coming together. I think there's a lot of value there. Externally as well, and we see this in the Innovation Center often, is making sure that we are talking to groups outside of our own from a cyber and an AI perspective, and making sure that collaboration exists externally as well. We even had for instance, we had a startup that we were working with that actually was doing so when language models are trained and you have to tag data, what if there was a cyber attack on the training of data? So imagine that you were training a system to look at buses and identify school buses. What if those were trained and a bad actor came in and said, now you identify a school bus as a military tank. What does that look like? So there's a lot of things like that. So we want to make sure that we are collaborating externally. The third one is around investment of technology. How are we using technology and AI to assist with automation? How do we use things that assist with predictive attacks? For instance, AI can upskill opportunities for employees that might not have great skills in cyber. So you can use AI to do things like do not allow cafeteria computer to access HR records, those kind of things. So I think education, obviously, investment in technology, and then collaboration, I think are the three things that I'd look at that.
No, that's interesting. Thank you. Can you please pass the mic to Guy Vincent? Guy Vincent, and then Oluwisi, I'd like to hear your opinion on this one as well. But how can educational institutions better align their curriculum with the industry needs based on AI, based on the skill gap? How are we bridging that gap?
Yes, so that's something we have been very active on at the university. So there is always this idea that we are training, in our ivory tower, and there is a big gap between what it is we teach and what it is that is needed by industry. So in order to narrow this gap, we still need to provide people with training that is going to last for a long time. So we have this education goal, but we also need to narrow the gap. And we have done that by collaborating with industry. So we have had a long-standing collaboration with IBM, but in practice, the first that we have incorporated was with Fortinet. We sat with Fortinet and realized that they have industry certification that is recognized by industry. So at the time it was SNE 4, and we integrated this content as part of an existing network security course that we had. So our student would take a normal network security course, get 3 credits towards their programs, but at the same time, they'll be ready to write the certification with Fortinet. We adapted the course to make them ready for that. So now all the labs that we have been switched over to using the solution from Fortinet. So students are being trained on Fortinet's equipment. They are ready to write the certification. If they choose to do so, then Fortinet will even cover the cost of the certification. And for our students, it means they get their programs and they are also certified. And we now have the same agreement with Cisco. So in our networking course, now our students are being trained on Cisco equipment. They're ready for the CCNA certification, and they are also getting their 3 credits toward that program. So that, for us, is one of the ways we narrow that gap by providing this deep collaboration, basically, with industry. And the other thing that we are doing is by developing these microprograms. So I am managing the microprogram in cybersecurity. You are managing the one in applied AI. We are developing a number of these things, and that's in recognition that not everyone wants to go for a bachelor or master's or PhD. Sometimes you want an academic training, but it has to be focused, and it has to be narrow. So we have developed those microprograms. So a microprogram in cybersecurity is something that you can add onto an existing program that you take, but that's also something you can take just as such. And so you can come to the university, take those 3 courses, you get your microprogram cybersecurity, you get exposed to AI, to cyber, the biggest of cybersecurity, and perhaps network security or something like that. And so you have the microprogram from the university, and you also have a certification in this case. And we are developing those more and more. We are trying to adapt. So, for example, to offer those courses in different formats, even in the microprogram. So it's only 3 courses, but we are now moving away from 12 weeks or 10 weeks, 3 hours a week. Perhaps that's not what people are looking for. So maybe trying to deliver that in a shorter format, for example, or in the evening, things like that.
Yeah. No, great. Thank you. I think, I'll echo your comment on the micro programs. I think in this day and age, it's good to have these shorter programs, and that you end up with the ticket from, the University of Ottawa too. And so it's a great institution. So this is good. How about you, Olubisi,
Yeah.
from the AI perspective?
Yeah, I'm just going to add to what Guy, has spoken about extensively. The university is at the forefront of, ensuring that, the skills gap is covered. So we are into developing courses and, changing the curriculum, the topics that are being trained or taught in classes. For instance, in the AI, program, we have introduced new courses. We have the machine learning that is targeted, as we speak, students. We have also the cybersecurity micro program now that is also included. So at U Ottawa, we have the master's program, which trains students on AI as well as the cybersecurity. So whoever has the time and is able to complete a 2-year program can go for that. And if not, we have the micro program that is just specifically focused on AI. We have 3 courses within the AI program. So for anyone that is already, an expert in the field of cybersecurity, they just want to learn the AI part of things. So they can take these 3 courses, and then they have the hands-on, knowledge that is required. Same for, the cybersecurity.
Right.
They can go for the micro program. So we have the masters and as well as the micro program. So university are updating their curriculum. They're introducing new topics like adversarial machine learning, ethics AI, and several relevant topics that is needed today. We understand also the need for hands-on projects to be able to work on real-world scenarios, which is really very useful. Students or whoever takes the course can take this knowledge straight into the industry and start working immediately. So a lot of strategies that universities are really incorporating to bring students up to speed to be able to work on AI projects related to cybersecurity.
Yeah, no, that is great. Thank you. Mike, to Guy Vincent, please. Guy Vincent, are there any innovative approaches, and you spoke a little bit on it on your previous answer, or programs that have shown promises in brightening the cybersecurity skill gap? And obviously, I do have fresh in mind the activity we did yesterday.
Yes.
Amongst together.
So I think I have to plug the CyberRanch here. In terms of what we have done, which is really innovative, we have opened the CyberRanch, an immersive space in which we can simulate a crisis, and we can walk through the crisis with the people who are in the room. This is, I think, a novel way of getting people exposed and educated on the problem. There's a technical component, but it's not only a technical component. And in the CyberRanch, we can really emulate all of that. So we look at the crisis from the technical side, from a communication side, from a human side, from a legal side, from an ethical side. We are trying to cover all of that in that space. So to give you an example, so we had this event yesterday, but in the coming 2 weeks, we are going to deliver these sessions to students. We are going to do that 5 times. With students from communication, Faculty of Arts, and students in the Telfair School of Management. So that's about 150 students who are going to go through a training in cybersecurity who would never have had this type of training otherwise. They would never have set foot in anything vaguely related to cybersecurity. And in the next 2 weeks, we'll have that. Last week, we had 30 students from K to 12 who were at the CyberRanch, also went through a training, and that's the same thing. They would not have had this type of opportunity if that wasn't for the CyberRanch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's probably how we try to make this impact at the university.
And thank you. And can you bring the mic to Mel, please? But thanks, Guy Vincent. Like he said, I did shared with the event yesterday of the simulation. If you have the opportunity to take part of one of the simulations at the CyberRanch, highly recommended. It's a really fun exercise.
May I just comment on that?
Please do.
Because I love that you're bringing in the other schools into to see this. We talk about cybersecurity. We think about the technical roles all the time, but there's obviously different positions that need to be filled, both on the communications side, in HR, and everybody has to be skilled up on cyber in order to be making better decisions for the business. So that's wonderful. It's this forward thinking with University of Ottawa that's so wonderful.
Yeah, and just on that point, yesterday we were 20-ish in the room, and we were 3 on the technical side. The rest of the room was executive and tactical. So to your point, it's not just the technical part of it, it's everyone in the organization. So Mel, how can we encourage more diversity in the cybersecurity workforce?
Yeah, I love this question, and we talk about diversity all the time. And it comes down, I'm going to use your numbering thing. It comes down to 2 things. It comes down to HR and their hiring practices, and it comes down to education as well. So on the hiring front, and I'm going to memorize this stat, 71% of organizations worldwide still rely on the 4-year degree, which is so important in terms of education and getting that foundation. But you really need to, in order to close the skills gap, and it keeps growing every year, you need to be looking at other forms of training as well. You need to be looking at certifications. Micro-credentials are so important. Train to hire programs, apprenticeships, all of these lead to provide those skills to those individuals that are growing up into into cyber, or who are trying to transition into cyber as well. We work a lot with veterans organizations. I know you hosted at the Cyber Lab coding for veterans, I think we were talking about.
Yep.
Really, really important. We look at these individuals in the population. They have that security mindset from their military careers. They know how to follow a chain of command under pressure, under attack. They're able to learn. Part of their military careers are all about learning, and that's about being able to upskill in your career all the time, to be able to stay up with the bad actors who are constantly upskilling themselves. It's weird to think about bad actors and upskilling and training. They're always looking for new ways. They're innovating. They're working around the clock. And we really need to be doing that. So looking at these different populations, bringing more women into cyber, bringing more minority groups. It's just so important to look at all populations. So that really needs to change. A lot of the organizations said that they had these hiring practices in place. I think a question I want to add to the survey that we're going to start working on in a few weeks for next year is, okay, you're saying that you're hiring, but what does your team actually look like? Because we know that diverse teams are important. They produce better results. It's more critical thinking. It's a different way of thinking. So really how you think you're doing versus what your team actually looks like. And I'd like to see that change. In terms of education, it's everything we talked about. It's the micro-credentials. It's the bringing in certifications. We were talking about hands-on in the hallway out there, and how important it is to have the theory, but have them have hands-on. We see that with certifications as well. When we provide those labs, here's the theory, here's how you do it now, and go do it. And that's where the expertise really comes from. Yeah. So I think that's what helps. Interesting.
Thank you. If you guys can start thinking about questions, I will soon turn myself to your way for questions for the panelists. We're already 40 minutes in-ish, so things are flowing well. But one question and I'd like to hear from all panelists. So Mel, you can stick with the mic if you want, please. What are long-term solutions to ensure that steady pipeline of cybersecurity skills on the professional front and readiness?
Yeah, so I touched on some in terms of universities and what we're doing there, looking at your hiring practices. But I think we have to go younger. We have to be looking at high schools. What you're doing can be translated into high schools so that then when they get to you guys, you can deal with it at a lot higher level as well. So that needs to change. I was so pleased that I was at parent-teacher. My son is 15 at parent-teacher interviews, and he has a computer science course in grade 10. I was like, wow, this is fantastic. You know, this is great. Tell me about the program. And he's like, well, it exists because of me. Because and he's retiring in 2 years. And I'm like, oh, so who's going to take it over then? No one. It's going to disappear. And I was like, okay, this is the problem that we have right now. Here we had it in his high school, and it's going to go away in 2 years if they can't find someone. So fixing the teaching problem, maybe I'll extend it to that. Yep. And also bringing it to primary schools as well, like kindergarten. We're talking about kindergarten right now. We're introducing a curriculum around the world for free to start in kindergarten and introducing concepts that the 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds can connect to, and then bringing it up through the grades so that it's along with math. As you're building on their skills, you're building on their cyber skills all along the way as well. And then I kind of have for me a stretch goal that one day, and Halloween is coming up, one day some kid, maybe a girl, maybe a guy, doesn't matter, dresses up as a sock analyst and goes trick-or-treating. I don't know what that looks like, but that's when we know we've all done our job.
Oh, that's a good point. And I can't agree more with, start at a young age, because I'll speak for myself, but my 2 sons are 10 and 8.
Yeah.
They're exposed to iPads and technology at a very young age. And, daddy YouTube Kids doesn't cut it for me. I need the real YouTube. And then you're exposed to other things, and it's all that conversation. So I do like when they come already at 8 and 10, say, Dad, can I click on this? It's like,
No.
good. No, don't. When it says free, it looks shiny, don't. But anyway, it starts young for sure. Wayne, how about you?
So I think, I'd look to our Cisco Networking Academy for this. I mean, this is our largest and longest running skills to job program, and it allows anybody at any age. So we actually have programs that start from K to 12, but it allows anybody from K to 12 all the way to university, colleges, and even in their professional career to engage anywhere along that journey. And it's around anything from, introduction to IT courses all the way to cybersecurity certification. So anywhere that you're curious or want to enter the field of IT, there's free curriculum available. And it's really about getting that in the hands of kids at a young age so that they are interested, like Mel said. Because the IT skills is the tide that raises all ships from a cybersecurity perspective. A lot of that is underpinned with the networking essentials and all the other capabilities that cyber relies on. So I think it's about awareness, and when we look at that as an entry to STEM courses, I think there's a lot of value to talk about how awareness of those tech skills are required at a very early age, and we need to get parents, teachers, and schools really incorporated into the solution.
Thank you. What do we see?
So,
How about you?
I'll say foundational courses are really very important. I mean, like math, statistics, probability, calculus, because these are used for developing all kinds of AI algorithms. And so without that knowledge from early on, it's really hard for maybe anyone to take interest in AI. Because it's really a kind of difficult area. And there are also other, components or, maybe concepts that needs to be learned. So it's not just all about the algorithms itself, it's more about doing the data. How do you ingest the data? How do you transform it? Sometimes it's more coming from streams, usually unstructured, coming from the web. So you have to bring it to a state that, you can actually even run that through an algorithm and convert it into what an algorithm actually understands. So there are a lot of also other techniques as well that needs to be taught, coming from, simple traditional machine learning models to deep learning models, or even now we have large language models and so on that actually need to be taught. So also data, databases. How do you store the data? Whether within the organization or it's resting somewhere in the cloud, you need to have an understanding of maybe cloud resources that are used to support large scale data processing. So it's a lot of needs when it comes to trying to bring these fields to people. There's just a lot of areas that need to be learned.
Well, thank you. And interesting spin you've put on it, because you're right that we need all those numbers game to configure the machine so we can utilize AI. And so maybe we just found the answer to, hey Dad, how am I going to use this in my life? These mathematics courses. What we have an appealing answer now for those ones. Guy Vincent, your friends?
Yeah, so I think next week is Bring Your Kid to Work Day.
It is.
And so this year, 30 kids from IBM are going to come to the Cyber Ranch as part of that. And 30 other kids from the university are going to come to the Cyber Ranch as well. As part of that. So this idea of really trying to get youngsters educated, exposed to the problems in a playful manner, but in an insightful manner is important. So at the Faculty of Engineering, we have developed math course and computer science course that we provide to to high school. And we have been trying to develop the same thing for cyber. It's a question of funding. It's very difficult to get support. It's very hard to get the school to pay for that. But it's clearly the solution. We need to go there. We need to teach. We need to give them access to the material, and we need to be delivered in an exciting way. It has to work for the kid as well. So it's a job to do that. We're willing to do it, and we're working towards doing these things. I think one of the key things that is going to make a difference is our ability to be agile. We cannot, teach the way we used to teach, and we cannot teach tomorrow the way we teach today. Things are moving fast. We need to be able to react. We need to be able to move. It's very difficult for an institution like a university to do that. It's not in our genes to do something like that, but we need to change. And we are on the path to doing that. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Interesting. This is where I turn to our lovely audience. Any questions that someone may have for the panelists? Yes?
Yeah, where does where does privacy fall within the curriculums for cybersecurity? Because with bills coming down 26 and 27, the two are very tightly coupled, and we haven't heard privacy yet. And certainly around the use of AI, privacy is a key piece.
Yeah. Do you want to try to take that one, Uluisu?
When it comes to privacy, it's also taught as part of the curriculum on security, because we are looking at different areas like ethical use of AI, and how it applies to handling of data, because there are some specific data sets that can't be handled in any form. So it's all incorporated into different courses. It may not specifically be that the title of the course says privacy, but usually privacy is embedded into the curriculum for most of the courses that are taught in cybersecurity. And even in the handling of data, we have to kind of train students on how to handle some specific kind of private information, and so on.
Thank you. Yeah, please do it.
So I can speak a little bit, not so much from a policy perspective, but when we're looking at some of what our customers are doing around training models with specific attention to privacy, because AI requires a lot of data to train the models, and there's a requirement to make sure that the data is responsible. So it's across, making sure that all demographics are incorporated so that you're not embedding biases in the process. A lot of our customers are actually starting to look at how do they use synthetic data to train the models. So there's companies that are actually being spun up and created to actually have the ability to supply the market with a lot of synthetic data to remove the privacy issues, but still have the data requirements that mirror what it would look like to satisfy the training requirements, and incorporating the responsible use of making sure that all demographics, all sexual orientations, all of the spectrums around what ethical data training looks like, all without using privacy. So synthetic data is actually becoming quite a thing.
No, that's interesting. Thanks, Wayne. Any other questions for our panelists? I can come to you with a mic. Yes.
Thank you all so much. I had a question. So I was at a focus group recently for cyber professionals who did something similar to this, talked about skills gaps. And one of the things that they mentioned is people have a preconceived notion that becoming a cybersecurity professional is kind of like an entry-level position, or like students can graduate and maybe just go into cybersecurity, but that actually for people to be adequately prepared for the cyber careers, they need to have several years of experience, significant critical thinking skills. So I guess my question with that is, like, what roles can students expect to get realistically post-grad? And what can we do to promote not just like the theory and the hard skills, but also the critical thinking skills?
So I can answer to the second part. What we do through initiatives like the Cyber Range is to give them hands-on experience, trying to make them involved and acquire practical experience while they are also going through a normal degree. All of our programs have a co-op options, and in many of our engineering programs, it's actually mandatory. So it means that the students are going to have experience there. And then we have all these initiatives around hackathon and other events like that that are very, very popular and that we are supporting everywhere we can. So students, because that's a little bit on the student as well to acquire and practice outside of the formal training of the university to pick up these skills. But we have to provide them the opportunities and to open those doors for them, and that's what we're trying to do.
Certainly the programs that are run at University of Ottawa are helpful to any students. We've also aligned our certifications with the NICE framework, so that I always mess this up, National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. So we've looked at the pillars that we look at for our certification program, the career paths, and just under networking, security networking, or network security itself, there were 10 different job roles that students could apply for, and they could actually map that to our certifications to give them a leg up. And they were everywhere from cyber defense analysts, cyber defense and infrastructure support specialists, enterprise architect, security architect, technical support, vulnerability assessment analysts. So if you do a little research and find out where your passion is and what you're good at, then you can certainly align that with some certifications and help you out in finding those positions.
Thanks, Noah. And I think you're bang on where your passion lies. It's so wide, cybersecurity, and it's often a bit overwhelming on where do I want to start in this. We might have time for one more question from the audience. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Yes.
Sure, I'm okay for microphone. Okay. You were mentioning, cyber and AI folks to share and do that knowledge transfer. Are you seeing any trends with different industries with cybersecurity and AI sharing their best practices and learnings with one another? Or is it strictly, for example, in the financial industry or healthcare, et cetera, are they kind of collaborating with those learnings?
So I think inherent in both of those conversations, there's a natural overlap that's going to exist, because whenever somebody's talking about cyber, AI is now so embedded in anything to do with cyber that there's a natural intersection. But there's also consortiums that are being spun up where there's a natural alignment from cybersecurity professionals as well as AI professionals. So I think there's a natural inclination externally for both of those organizations to collaborate, to talk about, and I think to work together, because AI is influencing so much of cyber development. I think internally is
Can you use this? It's going to capture the video.
There we go.
Internally, there's a lot more silos that can exist in an organization. I think that's where I think a lot of the challenges are, because externally those consortiums and those groups are gonna bring those together, I think.
Yeah, and we're just seeing at a global scale that certainly we're learning from other industries, but I think those like operational technology, where they're really getting hit, they're really having to protect their networks there. And when we're dealing with healthcare or anything in education with younger kids, that there's really a sensitivity on using AI right up until, and this is just anecdotal, but we have some training videos with our curriculum, and we're not using AI voices in those videos to teach in the education. They are just afraid of it. They don't want us to be using it. We're looking at it for translations. We're looking at it for other things, but we're being super sensitive when we're dealing with the education industry and anything related to AI.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. So, yeah, on this idea of collaboration, well, for one thing, in terms of consortium, there is something called the National Cybersecurity Consortium, the NCC, that is funding some research, collaborative research across Canada. In terms of what we do in research, we are working through our industry partners. We are working with law enforcement agencies across North America in sharing information. And so I think the culture of sharing data, sharing intel, and trying to learn from one another is really at the heart of that. And we are part of this in terms of research, at least at the university.
Thank you. Merci. Yeah, this thing. Yes, we got fresh batteries. We're good to go. So we are a little pressed on time. I do want to give some time so and allow everyone to network together. So I think for myself, we heard a lot of good comments and good answers to our questions. There's a few things that resonated. AI, I don't know if you've heard it a few times before, and it's real, and we need to embrace it. And I think we need to get on the bandwagon versus not getting into it. And if I bring it back to the skills, I think what I'd like to say is, well, utilize your strongest skills combined with AI will make every one of us that much better. So I think you need to embrace it, learn how to use it to your advantage, and start using it on your day-to-day. That's what I always tell my team members. Don't be afraid about it. We spoke about it. I initially said, there was fear on my part. But when you start to understand how to utilize it and how it can help you optimize your skills and maybe bridge that gap, I think it's phenomenal. So thank you very much, everyone. And Guy, can I introduce maybe for final remarks, if you don't mind?
Donc, tout d'abord, un grand merci. C'est ça? OK. Un grand merci à notre panel d'experts qui nous ont donné tellement de bons conseils et qui nous ont donné une perspective très, très importante à un moment très important dans notre cheminement comme société. Thank you so much to the panel. Just maybe a few closing kind of thoughts. I was just mesmerized by all of your presentations and answers to questions. So if I summarize things, I mean, we heard Wayne talk about complexity. So, cybersecurity sees complexity and how complex the world is right now. We heard from BC about the convergence. You just touched about AI and cyber and how they're converging. Guy Vincent talked about career readiness and how we need to give people who are leaving academia and leaving their sites of learning to get into the workforce to be career ready by doing things that are meaningful, hands-on, and practical and relevant. We heard from Mel about continuous development, continuous improvement, continuous learning, and certification, and how your skills gap report highlights how important filling those gaps are from a lifelong perspective. So a lot of really good perspectives. Merci beaucoup. And it's time to network. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.